Good evening and welcome to Face for the Newsfirst team. I'm Niresh Eliathambi. Well, politicians come in all hues, sizes, parties, races, religions, and so on. And these days, we have so many new parties, existing parties, they're all in the fray for the general election 2024. But a familiar face who is running for parliament is Mr. Janaka Ratnayake, former chairman of the Public Utilities Commission of Sri Lanka, who championed our rights, the rights of the public where utilities were concerned, and of course he was rather unceremoniously removed from the post just because he championed the people's causes. Now, Mr. Ratnayake is running from the Colombo district for Parliament. Welcome, Janaka. How are you?
Good. Thank you very much for inviting me for this episode of Face to Face.
You're most welcome, and you are colorful as usual. And I do hope you make it to Parliament because you will certainly add a touch of color in a civilized way. Parliament is, of course, has been very
grey place,
very colorful in its language, language which we certainly can't even
unparliamentary
repeat.
language.
Yes, unparliamentary language in Parliament. But I'm sure that you would liven it up without, of course, the unparliamentary language. So you're running from the Colombo district, from the Arunalu People's Front.
Yes.
And not surprisingly, perhaps, your symbol is the water tap.
Yes.
I suppose it had to be either the water tap or the power pylon or something like that.
No, it's connected to utilities as well. No?
Yes,
water, electricity, and things like that. I think it's a very common symbol. You don't need to, carry with the heavy burden, or you don't need to introduce. I think it's a tap that we use as in our everyday activity, especially in the morning.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, Janaka, tell me, you gained a reputation for being a champion for the cause of the people.
Yes.
At the time when the government, which was broke, bankrupt, was casting that burden onto the people through increased taxes, increased petrol costs, diesel costs, increased everything basically, and especially Ceylon Electricity Board tariffs.
Yes.
And you actually fought hard against that, trying to give the consumer a fair deal.
Yes.
And you were right, because the CEB ended up making massive profits.
Yes.
And the burden was on the consumer. Hundreds of thousands lost their electricity connections because they couldn't even pay.
Last year alone, up to 10 million.
My good, 1 million. 1 million.
Sorry, 1 million disconnections. Yes. Yeah, 10 lakhs.
My goodness. And how many connections are there in the country?
There are connections of 7 million consumers, around 5.5 million households plus the business premises.
Right. So, out
and
of
I think you just said that the country is bankrupt. It was officially declared as bankrupt.
Well, it is the government of Sri Lanka.
Who declared their bankruptcy. Now, they are bankrupting people by unfair tariffs and the fuel prices. So, that's why I have been fighting for last almost 2 years. My fight is not ended yet. I am still on that course.
Well, that's good to hear.
Yes.
As a consumer who has been suffering with a high electricity bill, I can certainly sympathize with you, and I do hope you get to Parliament because your voice needs to be heard. Be that as it may, tell us what's the latest with the CEB, which is earning massive profits, and why is it earning massive profits?
Yes.
Is
Now,
it in the business of merger?
I will start with the discussion with this tariff proposals sent by CEB to PUCSL last week.
Right.
Now, in this
This is what the CB is
request proposing to PUCSL on the 24th of October, that was last week, for a tariff hike which is scheduled to be introduced in next January.
In just 2 months' time.
Just 2 months, because you need at least 2 months for the process of this tariff revision.
Right.
Now, the first page they say is the regular tariff revision, and they are talking about a loss of 278 billion they have incurred, CB has incurred during the last almost 10 years, since 2013 to 2022.
The CB has incurred that
loss of 278 billion because of a decision then the president of the country took as a pledge to the people during a political campaign. He said the tariff will be reduced by 25%. So, therefore, he was compelled to do it, and therefore, CB made losses of 203 billion up to 2022. And in 2022 alone, we know that we had lengthy power cuts up to around 10 to 12 hours, and they had used many thermal generation power plant, which they spend billions of money to buy naphtha and furnace oil at a huge price. So, and therefore, they incurred 203 billion. And 2023, CB has made 61 billion profit, and in 2024 up to August, they have made 133 billion. The total of this is, for last maybe 1.5 years, they have made almost 195 billion net profit against the acts of PUCSL and the electricity, because CB cannot make profits, they can recover only the cost of generation of electricity. So, this is against the acts of the institution that CB has made, and therefore, only I said that maybe 2 years back, the illegal tariff hike that they introduced by force when I was away from the country, when I was the chairman of PCSL, they got some political appointees appointed to the board of PCSL. When I was away, they had an illegal board meeting, and they accepted the entire proposal which was given by CB and imposed on the people. That is why they have made a huge profit of 195 billion. Now, see, revision is effective, will be effective from next January. We have 4 more months. This is up to the August, September, October, November, December. They may make another 30 billion. That means that the total profit of this last 2 years would be more than 220 billion. From where this money coming? This money is coming from the innocent consumers who do not have 3 meals a day.
Absolutely.
Yes. So, this is unfair. That is why I have been fighting against this for the illegal, the tariff hike that they did in 2022 and subsequently making huge profit. I have gone to Supreme Court also, and I got a favorable decision, I think a week ago, that cases were given leave to proceed. That means, we might get a positive reply when it is heard in the future, and therefore, people can keep hopes. And until we get this resolved, until the tariff hikes are, tariff reduction is given to the people, I am going to fight. Now, irrespective whether I will be elected to the parliament or not, my fight will continue for the betterment of the people.
Now, Janaka, tell me, now this tariff revision, we'll come to the revision, because the revision is for the future.
Yeah.
But what happens to this 190 billion or let us say 220 billion, which would have been made before the tariffs would get revised in January? What happens to this 220 billion? Does it immediately get transferred to the treasury, or is it within the CB in their bank accounts?
This is nothing to do with the treasury. CB is an entity where they pay taxes of for the fuel that they buy, when the fuel are imported, and this money is not going to treasury, this money is going to CB. And due to the mismanagement of the entity, as we know, and the CPC and CB are famous to make losses, because we feel, now see, the revenue of the annual turnover of this CB would be in the range of 600 billion. Now, to manage 600 billion, do they have competent and experienced people? That's why, although they make 200 billion profit up to now, they have OD of almost 15 billion in their bank accounts.
15 billion.
15 billion is the OD that they have, although they have made 195 billion. This is a mismanagement of the entity. And they are talking about losses that made due to a bad political decision, and I don't think that according to the Electricity Act, you can't make profits, you can recover only the cost of generation and distribution and whatever the administrative charges that they can recover, but they can't make profits. So, therefore, only that I have gone to courts and said that tariff is illegal, it is illegally done, therefore, transfer the benefit of that to the people immediately. So, my fight will continue, and of course, from the future revision, you can't give the benefit, you cannot distribute the profits, that is not possible, because the tariff will be decided depending on the demand and supply of the next 6 months from January.
Well, what are you proposing be done with this 220 billion? I mean, is it going to
It is not going to treasury.
Right.
It should have been with CB, but when you look at the accounts, you can't see that there is a surplus. That's why there is no surplus, but they have 15 billion OD as well. That means they have borrowed money from the banks, or they made 200 billion. So, what I say is that the illegal tariff hike, the profit that they made should be given or returned to the consumers in the future.
But instead, what you're saying is that the CEB has borrowed so much that this
still borrowing.
200 billion goes back to the banks.
Yeah.
To repay
So,
those
usually,
loans.
if you look at their last 2 financial accounts, 2022, 23 and up to 24, they have incurred more than 40 billion as interest and paid to these 2 state banks. So, what happens is, due to the mismanagement of this colossal amount of money, since they do not manage their cash flows, although you make billions of revenues, they are still in debts to many banks. So, that is why I say that now say you are talking about restructuring of CB and doing many things, but first what they should do is they should get a good team, and since they are making almost 600 billion revenues per year, they should have a good team to manage their finances first. Otherwise, what happens? Although you make billions of money, the accounts will show that you have no money, no cash in hand, but still hefty sums of money that they have borrowed still from the banks. And end of the day, banks are making billions of money, maybe from this 2 entities.
Now, of course, banks always make money at the expense of the consumer. We'll leave that for another day. Now, there seems to be something fundamentally wrong with this scenario where the consumer is assumed to be the same person from 10-15 years ago and now, but that is not so. So, the low tariffs of 10-15 years ago were enjoyed by the consumers of that time. Some of those consumers, many of them, would still be around.
Yes.
But there would be many consumers who signed up newly. They got their connections over the last 2 years, 3 years, whatever. Now, they are being penalized. They are being asked to pay for the sins of the CEB and the politicians. And of course, the advantage was to consumers 10 or 15 years ago. Now, this seems like bad marketing, because if you're selling, you're manufacturing soap and you're selling soap, and for some reason your management decided to sell it below cost, and so the consumers benefited, and then 10 years down the road you decide no, the consumers need to pay, not just
For their all sins.
for the old sins. So, your cake of soap is now so much higher because the consumers of yesteryear have benefited. That just doesn't seem, it's bad marketing, basically.
I think whether the consumer is old or maybe new, this has nothing to do with the consumers. It's the policies of the government. Then the politicians in 2013 decided to reduce it, but the subsequent government should have corrected it.
But this has everything to do with the consumers. I mean, the government and the CEB, the successive governments and the successive boards of the CEB seem to be acting as if the consumers don't count, that they don't matter, that they are a cash cow who can be put out to pasture, or sent to the butcher at whatever point that it is decided by the government.
No, let me just share one of my experiences at PUCSL. Now, I was appointed to PUCSL in 2020, early. And since I am a businessman, when I looked at the CEB financials, I felt that they are making colossal losses. And I started writing to CEB many a times with private meetings with the CEB board and the chairman, asking them to request a tariff revision. So, it took almost 1.5 years with my perseverance only that they sent the first proposal for tariff revision, because by looking at their financials as a businessman, I felt that CEB cannot continue. And we gave a reasonable tariff revision in 2021, which was sufficient to manage the entity. But what happened subsequently, CEB got greedy, the politicians got greedy, they thought some opportunities in making more money, that's why they imposed 2 subsequent revisions without my approval. That's how they made this huge amount of money. I do not put the blame to consumers, because any consumer would like to have their goods and services at a reasonable or cheaper price, or maybe free of charge for that matter. But the entities of this nature, along with the government, should know how to manage this entity. So, when they take wrong decisions, end of the day, if the consumers are penalized now, like today, countries bankrupt, people have no money to probably have their own meals, and on top of that, you charge huge amounts on your utilities, where at least 15 to 20% of your household income will go to utilities just to maintain your electricity and water and gas, and maybe plus the fuel as well. This is unfair. That's why I said that the correction should take place. Now, by this proposal, they are asking only for 6% revision, a reduction.
6%?
6% only.
From January. What,
yes,
in your opinion?
My opinion.
What should it be?
If you look at the demand and the supply, the amount that they have made during the last 1.5 years, they should be given at least 30% reduction. 30%? You can give 30% without government losing any money. You leave the mismanagement away, you manage the entity properly, you handle your cash flows and finance properly, then you can reduce your cost, reduce your finance cost, and then pass that benefit to the client, and I think you can easily give 30%. Because we have enough of hydropower generation, I think we have enough water, and the coal prices have come down, and we know that we have been paying exorbitant prices for these petrol, diesel, naphtha, and the other fuel. And when the prices are reduced of those things, I think the cost of electricity the production generation can be less. Then you can pass that benefit to the consumers without government losing any cent to their coffers.
Now, Janaka, the CEB wants to reduce by 6%.
Yeah.
You are saying they should and they can reduce by 30%.
Yes.
And you are not an ordinary member of the public.
Yeah.
You are a successful businessman, and you were the chairman of the PUCSL. So, you know what you are talking about.
Yes.
But look at this huge difference, 6%
Yes.
and 30%. I mean, if it were 6% and 8%,
You can.
no, it would still be an issue.
Yes.
But, you could say, well, it's not too bad,
Yeah.
maybe 7% is
Yeah,
okay.
okay.
But we'd still be arguing that. Where do you even start to argue when people are, when they should be reducing by 30%, they reduce only by 6%? How do you even start to argue this point?
No, I think that we need to build the pressure to these entities plus to the government. And I don't think the new government need any time to adjust this the utility prices, because they have nothing to do with any political the strategies of the country, because these are handled by entities plus a regulator. Then what happens is,
so it's not the cabinet.
it's not the cabinet, it is not anything, because that when I was there was a cabinet decision which I rejected, because cabinet has nothing to do with PCSL and the price revisions of electricity.
Because the Public Utilities Commission of
is
Sri
empowered
Lanka
to do that.
and empowered and is an independent commission.
Yes, very independent commission.
Right.
So, what they need to do is, they need to manage these huge entities properly, without leaving any provisions for mismanagement, and they should manage their cash flows and pass the benefit which could be given to people, because we are talking about always, we need to talk about only always practical aspects. Now, we should, if we talk about the things that which are beyond our control to benefit the people, of course we are making a mistake. But this type of things, when you have when you are with the, when you deal with the numbers, always it's numbers, and we are looking at like say economic principles like demand and supply and generation, all those things, this can be given. Only thing is that I don't think the rulers, the new rulers, do not understand this yet, but they will understand later. I feel that they will understand this properly and talk to these entities, especially to PUCSL, and make sure the people are given these benefits without much delay.
But it's not just the people, is it? Now, let's look at investors.
Yeah.
Right now, the cost of power in Sri Lanka is amongst the highest in Asia, isn't it?
In the region, yes.
In the
yes,
region.
In the region.
So if you were a foreign investor, you've got $10 million to invest, and you have this entire region, South Asia, Southeast Asia, about 20 countries to choose from, and you look at all the different aspects, geographic location,
everything,
ports, land, the cost of land, cost of labor, the time it would take to set up your factory or whatever. You will look at all that. But one of the key aspects is the cost of power.
Yes, it's a direct cost.
It's a direct cost,
because will be added to your goods and service directly.
Right.
Yeah.
So now let's say that it's a computer chip manufacturer. Now, just because the CEB wants to charge more, because the CEB made losses 10 years ago, is that chip manufacturer supposed to increase the cost of chips? I mean, this doesn't figure. He will simply go to another country.
Yeah.
So this is bordering on treason.
Yes.
Because you are chasing away the foreign investors.
Prospective. Yeah. I think this will.
In fact, even the local investors are now going overseas. I mean, you every week we read in the newspapers, very proudly we read X and X company
is setting up something elsewhere.
Yeah, they are in Kenya, they are in Malaysia, they are in Vietnam, they are in Bangladesh, they are in Tamil Nadu. And we think, oh, how wonderful. But why are they going in the first place? So this is a key reason, isn't it? You talk to any local businessman, they will tell you this.
Yeah, when it comes to manufacturing or trading, or even for that matter, tourism, I think these are interconnected with especially utilities. And when the utility prices rates are very high, it affects the profitability of the business, because it's a direct cost, as I told you. And therefore, in order to, as you said, rightly said, to attract investors. Now, say you have a possible investor who is with X amount of money, he looks at many factors, politics, economics, cost of production, the labor market and all those things. But when they see electricity, the utility rates are very high, and you don't need to look at anything else, because these are just numbers. So, therefore, you need to be careful in order to attract FDIs, in order to attract, even develop our tourism industry, which is very well connected. As I run hotels, I know the highest the cost is for electricity in my hotels.
The largest single cost in your hotels is
for
electricity.
The electricity. And therefore, it has a huge impact on any business. As you know that during the last crisis period, more than 2,000 SMEs went out of the market, or out of business, and mainly due to the high prices of utility bills. So, therefore, in order to develop, now see, we are talking about borrowing money from international agencies or maybe bilateral agreements. But what happens is, in order to develop this country, I don't think that we should look at loans. Instead, we should look at the increasing of production and efficiency.
Absolutely.
And the growth of the country. Then only that we can come out with this miserable bankruptcy situation.
But also, right now, Sri Lanka is known as a country that you don't want to invest in. Yeah. With all the bad press of the bankruptcy,
yeah,
and then the high costs.
Yes.
Basically, we are almost blacklisted among investors. They don't want to come here. Not exactly blacklisted, but we are not at all attractive.
It is quite evident when you look at foreign direct investments into the country for last 10 years. You hardly see that we have got up to $1 billion investment per year. We are hovering at maybe 200 million, 300 million, 400 million, 500 million. So, we have never passed, I think maybe for last couple of years, more than $1 billion of foreign investments. I think those factors the rulers should understand, and they should make sure that the climate for the foreigners to engage in business, even for that matter to increase our investments, local investments, we need to keep these factors at a manageable price level.
So Janaka, $1 billion of investment is nothing.
Yes. But I said that not even 1 billion that we have got in a single year. For last maybe 10 years.
Now, just a few weeks ago, Apple and Google independently announced investments of approximately $15 billion in Malaysia.
Yeah, true.
Which are already now flowing into that country.
Yeah.
And as a result, the Malaysian economy is expected to boom, and the Malaysian ringgit is now
probably strengthening
among the best performing currencies in Asia. So many benefits.
Yes.
And tens of thousands of jobs for Malaysians. But would that have happened if the Malaysian power company was charging rates like ours?
I think this is not mainly due to utilities only. Now you see,
well, we are unattractive in many ways.
You can go to Malaysia and buy a property, and you can in fact get maybe long-term visas in Malaysia. You can get long-term visas in Singapore. You can probably buy properties in any of the countries in Europe and Australia and America also. But see, we have no such policies where foreigners can easily buy properties or easily come for like investments, because there are no policy framework. But you go to down south and to anywhere else, maybe LA, you see most of these businesses are owned by foreigners illegally. So this happens because since there are no policy framework for investments in this country, or even to buy lands, people use illegal means, but still they won't. So that's why we say that in order to develop this country, you need to have a proper policy framework. So this is the right time, because since we have seen a political change after 76 years, it's a good trend, but we have to make sure that the present government or the people who are elected to the parliament next time will have proper policies to be implemented in order to develop this country.
Now, let's get to those policies in a moment, Janaka. But right now, we need to cross over for a short commercial break. Don't go away, we'll be right back. Welcome back to Face to Face. We are in conversation with Janaka Ratnayake, who is now running for Parliament from the Colombo district, and his party is the Arunalu People's Front, and the symbol is the water tap. Now, Janaka, we were talking about policies and implementation of policies. Why is it so difficult to implement a policy in Sri Lanka? Now let's take this flap over tourists overstaying visas, Israelis, Russians, Ukrainians, whatever. But it seems so simple. The immigration department already knows in its computers who has overstayed.
Yes.
We've seen this. I mean, I've personally seen this, where a tourist who had overstayed, when he tried to leave at BIA, immediately the computer flagged him. He had to pay a fine. So the computer knows. So the immigration department knows exactly who has overstayed, but they do sweet nothing about it.
Yeah.
I mean, if they would simply publish those names of
at
those
least give the
tourists,
numbers of how many illegal immigrants are in Sri Lanka. That is also not there.
So, but these are not illegal immigrants.
Yeah, when somebody is overstaying, it is illegal.
Yeah, yes, but they have come through the process, so we know. It's not like they landed by boat and we don't know.
No, not like that.
So we know who they are.
Yeah.
And for goodness sake, these, Israelis, Russians, they don't look like us.
Yeah, you can easily recognize them.
You can easily recognize them. I mean, if it was a South Indian who came in, then you could say, well, it's difficult to spot, or a Maldivian, difficult to spot. But these are, people of different races. So what's wrong here? What's going on? And this is the immigration department. But so many other departments are corrupt. We've talked about the CB. We can talk about the CPC.
We can talk about many things.
The excise department, customs, inland revenue. I mean, you just keep going on and on and on. And we haven't even got down to even the Pradeshya Sabhas, the municipal councils. I mean, we all know those are also corrupt. But why and how? How is it going to be changed?
No.
Just changing the president and changing parliament isn't going to do this.
No. What happens is, like say, I said after 76 years, there's a positive change. At least, people complain about many, corrupt and bad politicians. And I think there are more than 60 people who doesn't contest even in this forthcoming election. But we are talking about this, policies with regard to every entity. It is not maybe, confined only to, as you said, CB, CPC or immigration. That's why I said that we need a policy framework. Now see, if you talk about good policies, talk about a place like PUCA Select. That's why the politicians have to put me out from the parliament. Now the process is very stringent. Now see, even the tariff hike, there's a methodology that they should comply. It's not just a formula, end of the month, a minister used to treat and say, according to the formula, your fuel price is adjusted as below. Now, they are not policies. What happens is, every 5 years, when the government changed, they change their policy framework. That's why we are having this problem. So, to run a country or to develop a country, the countries like, Singapore or maybe for that matter, India, or the many developed countries, they have their policies intact. The politicians will come and add and follow things according to the policies. But what happens over here, no sooner they come, they try to probably put their 2 cents into that and they are trying to change everything. So, therefore, only that we are having, even after 76 years of independence, no proper policy framework for education, for health, for transportation, for nothing we have.
Now, Janaka, there's nothing wrong with changing policies if it is for the better.
Yes.
As,
Yeah.
you know, if
No,
it-
what happens is these politicians think that they are better than the other lot and they bring something different. Now, all the politicians who are coming and say you get a new minister. Minister thinks that he knows everything and he is trying to change it. So, this is, I said the policy should be, implemented by laws. Then you have a framework. The policies, if the politicians are trying, now see, we have seen many ministers in power and energy sector for last maybe 5 years, maybe 5 ministers. Now, say if the politician come and change the policies or the principles of that entity, they can't run. That's why I said that, the policy framework should be the law of the country. The politicians will come and, add glamour, color and improve it. That should be done. That should be the way that this should be done. Otherwise, what happens is, you get a dud politician who become a minister, who overnight thinks that he knows everything. Next day, he will come and advise the advisors of the entity to do what he wants.
Now, let's talk about political promises.
Yes.
Because the promises that politicians make when they are in the opposition and when they are running for president, the presidency, parliament and so on, those promises are to change policy for the better. But once they get into office, they seem to forget the promises. When they are reminded, they come up with umpteen excuses. And then quietly the policies are changed, not for the better, but for the worse.
Worse.
And we see this happening with government after government.
Yes.
This particular new government is just 1 month old.
Yeah.
Give it some time. But there already seem to be a few reversals
Yes,
of what they earlier said. Let's just take one example. The PTA, the Prevention of Terrorism Act, which governments used against the JVP.
Yeah. The same people want
horrendously, and the JVP is the main constituent party of the NPP, which is now in office.
Yeah. So they are using this as a cover now.
Yes, but the NPP repeatedly said that they would be repealing the PTA. But now, yesterday, what was said that they are not going to repeal the PTA once Parliament is elected.
I think what happens here, Nilesh, when you are in opposition, when you are out of power, and when a ruling party want to take the power again, they come out with false promises. This happened since 1948, from the very first election till the last one. The last presidential election we saw many people come and promised many things. The salary increments for especially.
So, are you saying that this new government is no different from the earlier ones?
The indications that they have given for the last 1 month plus 2 days is nothing new, because we need a radical change. People change the entire political system which has been there for 76 years to not to experience the same thing. But so at least maybe what they could do, they should do. They cannot. They will say that they need 2/3. They need simple majority 2/3. They need 5/6 and all those things.
No, but 2/3 is to amend the constitution. Let's forget about that. I'm sorry, but
No.
we've been waiting 30 years since Mrs. Chandrika Kumaratunga promised to abolish the executive presidency back in 1994. This is now 2024. Forget about it. I'm not even going there, right? Because if the NPP doesn't get 2/3, then it's dead in the water. There is no point expecting oppositions to vote with the government. It never happens, and it will simply get lost. So forget about that one. But then, what about the other policy promises? Of course.
Now you talk about PTA and all those things. These are the things that these people who are not in power use us to get into power. But when they get into power, they use them as a shelter to hide inside. Shells. This is happening, this has been happening not only this time, this has been happening right throughout. Now, you said abolition of presidency, we have been talking this about almost 30 years. Now, every successive president say that they will do, but nobody will do it. Now, people get carried away and vote for them. And this has become a system and a practice even now. So, that is why I said there is a slight change that has been taken in our political scenario. This should continue. This should continue for the betterment of the people, and therefore, people should wisely select the next constituents in forthcoming election to get the right people to the right job and make sure that even after 76 years, you will not face what they have faced before.
Now, Janaka, Sri Lanka has a history of passing laws which are targeted to victimize segments of society. The Citizenship Act back in the 40s disenfranchised the estate community. Then you have the PTA, you have criminal defamation, which was targeted solely at journalists. So this is our history. I mean, it's not just our country. In South Africa, you had the apartheid law, right? But South Africa got rid of that law. Now, and we have, I mean, we've repealed criminal defamation, that's wonderful. But there have been little rumblings that we need something like that back again. Hopefully, sanity prevails. But when you look at now the PTA, clearly an act which has to go. Since 1979, it's a temporary act. That's crazy. But now even this government says they are going to keep it. And this government says they will not abuse it. But then it's not about them, is it?
Not abusing.
Because let's just assume that in 5 years' time, another party comes into office. Is there any guarantee that that party would not abuse it?
I think since we have gone through this many a times, people by now should know these are only political promises. Now, to gain power or to regain power, people come out with many things and they promise many things. But when they get into power, they think that, like PTA, you need maybe extra shelter for them to hide. So, therefore, when they know this, when they are in power, they will not do what they want. Now, say, I become the president or you become the president or whoever else become the president. When you are getting to that position, although you want to abolish it, when you have it, you can't probably give up. This is what has been happening to the presidents of this country. So, that's why although they promise many things, the laws that you were talking about, before they come into power, they say they can do it, but when they are in power, they think differently. So, this should change. So, this is the change that we are looking at maybe the next time when we elect people.
Okay. Now, Janaka, you're running for office.
Yes.
What are your promises? What are you promising if you get into Parliament?
Yes.
And I doubt that you are trying to form a government.
No.
But you would be in Parliament.
Yes.
Perhaps one or two members from your party.
Yes.
What is it that you are promising to do?
We run for 18 districts under this party, Arunalu People's Front.
18 districts.
18 districts.
Out of
22 and we hope that if everything goes well, we will secure more than 6 to 7 seats in the Parliament. Now, what do we offer to the people on our table is that as you know that with 6 7 seats you cannot form a government. But what we can do now, see, as the former chairman of PCSL, I always fought against the illegal tariff hike, and in fact, I used my public funds to litigate against this. And what I will do is, now see, when you have people like us in parliament, you can pressurize whatever the ruling party, because my style being the ex-chairman of PCSL, when I had to fight with the entire government or the president or the cabinet, I do not basically care. I care only for the cause that I am fighting for. Therefore, I can guarantee if the people of Colombo select me and elect me as the member of parliament this time, I will make sure that the things that I feel that which will benefit the people immediately, like electricity tariff, water tariff, and I have been fighting even at COP committee 2 years back, saying that the prices that we pay for diesel, petrol and kerosene could be reduced by 200 rupees. But what happens is, every end of the month you see, earlier minister used to tweet 31st night saying that it's plus 5 minus, 10 minus and things like that. And he was quoting a formula which is not a scientific formula, it's just a costing of fuel import. Now, apart from that, and that's why, like say in maybe a month ago, I revealed another important thing. According to the Auditor General's report of 2022 of CPC, the politicians and the connected officials in CPC has robbed 36 billion from fuel procurement, distribution and selling. Now, you see the corruption, amount of corruption that they have engaged in. So, what I promise, when they select me as a member of the parliament, I put the pressure on in whatever the government which is there for the people, and I will be the voice of the people who cannot voice their thoughts, and fight to get immediate relief on this the things that I am fighting for.
Now, Janaka, you just spoke about the billions that have been robbed by public officials,
including politicians.
Yes. Right. Now, is there any indication that since President AKD took office, that this robbing has stopped? Of course, the old politicians are gone.
Yes. So, there's no people to rob at the moment. There are only 3 people running the government, but the bureaucrats are still there.
So, are they robbing? Have they magically stopped?
I don't think you can immediately stop it unless you bring a proper system to monitor them, because we have the same bureaucrats and a few politicians who have been famous for robbing, they are no more, but the system stays. So, unless you have a proper system to check them, and this will continue. But I think, unlike before, the pulse of the people, since I am a businessman, when I am moving, now people are at least reluctant to rob.
But Janaka, now let's assume.
Yes.
Okay, let's take this hypothetical example. You're working at the CB.
Yeah.
You're in whatever coal procurement. Your salary is, I think they're paid quite high there. Let's just say,
I think highest paid employees in the government sector.
Let's say 400,000.
More, maybe more.
Okay, 500,000. Okay, salary of 500,000 per month. Right. You've been used to making another 500,000 on the side.
Let interrupt you. A person, I think there was some information out. One engineer attached to CB who earns maybe 500,000 had 30 properties.
30 properties
under his name. This we are talking about see the size of the magnitude of the corruption that they are engaged in.
Right.
And it is a famous story,
Okay, but let's just hypothetically. So, he's earning 500,000, he's making another 500,000 through illegal means. Now, the government has changed. Would he just stop? He's used to having $1 million every month.
If you look at the numbers of people who have got caught taking bribes, who leads? More than 1,000 policemen in the country was imprisoned during the last 5 years taking bribes. Not big amounts, maybe from 1,000 to maybe a few 100,000. So, this is the nature. The people who are there to protect the public for peace and order, they are the people who are engaged in corruption and bribes at the highest level. And this is the people who get caught. But see, now you were talking about procurement of, very expensive things, big things, which needs, millions and billions of money, like coal, like fuel. That's why the 2022 Auditor General's report say of CPC, the high-ranking public officials and the politicians have robbed 36 billion, and they are given the numbers as they have, imported these consignments into the country. So, this type of large-scale things, now say catching maybe a policeman with 5,000 rupees will not do any good to anybody. Only what happens is that probably person will lose a job. But when the Auditor General says that the 36 billion is being robbed from one entity within a year, now it is being referred to, I have made a complaint at Bribery and Corruption, the commission, and I gave my statement also last week. Either they are taking speedy action. Either we need to stop large scale corruption, then only at least some economic benefit will come into the country and giving maybe a good lessons to the other small fellows who robs maybe 1,000, 2,000 rupees. By catching them, nobody is going to make anything. You think that when they know that more than 1,000 police officers have got caught due to corruption, others will be better police officers? No, they keep on doing this unless you change their attitude.
Do you believe the NPP's promise to eradicate corruption or to take this battle forward against corruption?
I have a simple reply to that. Do remember who was chairing the same type of committee during 2015 to 2019? Not the current president. I think I can remember. The people can remember. He was assigned to head that particular committee to curb this issue that we had.
So you have your doubts. You have your
doubts.
I
have doubts unless they do it. Now they have got the chance to do it. Do and show the people. But then the real change will come to.
But we need to give them a bit more time. Of course,
they will. I say, although it is probably against my the political this thing, the president should be given at least simple majority in the parliament. So we do not have troubles like what we see in Europe, coalition governments which they do not have even 50%, and maybe the prime ministers, the cabinet, everything change within 3 to 6 months. You see Australia, you see what happened in UK, everywhere. So therefore, make sure the people should get at least 114. But I am doubtful by looking at the result of the latest Pradesh Sabha, which we just concluded around a week ago. They did not get 50%. They should get. And therefore, although you say the opposition is weak, I think the present government also weak. They cannot attract, because they do not have loyal voters with them. The other voters vote for them because we simply needed a change. So now changes happen. Select good people, give them simple majority, send strong people who will voice thoughts for the others like me to the parliament. We can make sure that the country will be developed within maybe 5 to 6, 10 years.
So basically, elect the NPP, but
elect the NPP, select me.
Send independent persons like you into parliament as well, and give the government a bit of time.
Yes.
And hopefully things will turn out for the better.
Yes.
I'm afraid we are out of time.
Give me maybe 2 minutes for me to finish.
Yes, just a quick wrap up, please.
Yes, just to give a direct message to the voters, especially who votes maybe in the forthcoming general election. And we have seen a low voter turnout in the last Pradesh Sabha election. It should not happen. And I think that we got almost 80% voting for the president. I think this should be in the range of at least 75. Then there will be a good selection of people into this thing. I am contesting from Arunalu People's Front, the tap, the symbol is water tap. My number is number 7, and I don't think that they will probably, not notice the Arunalu People's Front, because it is almost at the second party is my party. At the top of the voting list, you can see my party. Janaka Ratnayake name won't be there, but the number 7 will be there. You need to, I think, people should wisely use their votes in this forthcoming election, not to probably look at the faces of the people, see their background, what they have done to the people for last maybe the couple of years. And I always say, do not get unknown people from known parties, but get known people who had worked for the people, even from smaller parties.
Janaka Ratnayake, who is running for Parliament from the Colombo district, from the Arunalu People's Front. Thank you very much for being with us. It's been a scintillating discussion, and we will meet again in a few months to see the progress.
Okay. Thank you very much, Nilesh.
And good luck to you in your campaign. And thank you to you at home for watching. Don't go away, because the news is coming up next. Have a good evening.